You've got a spot right here?
Hello.
Okay. So,
Hey, nice to meet you.
the physical context here is the ocean, but the broader conversation is as much of the day is around systemic investing and around how do we build the supportive infrastructure and ecosystems around innovators. So I'm first going to invite the folks from Upwell here, Daniela and Alexandra, to share a little bit about their story and how they come to touch on this, and then we'll bring in a couple of our ecosystem players.
All right, thank you very much. I'm Daniela Zacon, the CEO and founder of Upwell Materials, here with my co-founder Alexandra Dowling, who will tell you more about herself as well. My background's in marine biology and sustainable business. We have a very cool origin story that maybe we'll get into a little bit more after, but we have a company that is creating biomaterials out of algae for the cosmetic industry, which we're very excited to talk more about. Alex?
Hi, Alexandra Dowling-Laurie. My background is in beauty. I went to Parsons School of Design for graduate school and then worked for LVMH for almost 10 years. So Danny is the scientist and I am the beauty side of the business.
Excellent. But we'd love to hear the origin story. Like, how did you come to be working with algae?
Okay, so Alexandra and I actually live in a town called Woods Hole, which has the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, and academia has a lot of really interesting tech that sometimes doesn't make it to the outside world. And so we were lucky enough to speak with some scientists in our town who had accidentally discovered a wax from an algae. They weren't quite sure what to do with it, and we thought this would be great for the personal care industry because wax is in almost every single product that you use, and it's predominantly from petroleum, animal, or non-sustainable plants. So that was kind of the origin of our company, and then when we looked further at our algae, we found all of these other compounds that were really interesting, and we can kind of talk a little bit more about the overall ocean innovation and what the oceans can offer us that we can then translate into applications for humans. So if I dive into that quickly, I'll just say, so our algae is really an interesting strain of algae. It's a golden algae, and it comes from an area where there are extreme tides. So when it's at low tide for 48 hours, it had developed these compounds for very intense moisturizing, which is great in cosmetics. You want products that keep you plump, hydrated, a lot of anti-aging creams and sunscreens, all of these things want that hydrating aspect, which these algae naturally evolved to have. So that's fantastic. Another thing that our algae had evolved are pigments that help to block against light. That is also something that you really want in skincare. And then what's really interesting is our wax. It's the only algae to make a wax. We're not completely sure why our algae evolved to have that component, but it's a very, very fatty algae. And for some reason, it evolved to have this component of a wax, which we now can use for application in the beauty industry. So I think the ocean is just full of all of these adaptations that we can then take and translate into products that are sustainable for humans.
Yeah. So earlier this week, I heard someone say that markets used to make policy, but now policy are making markets. So that's very much the case for us. I was working in the beauty space, and I got a call from Danny telling me about this technology from Hui. And I immediately said, oh my God, yes. You know, I was working for a large conglomerate at the time for one of their clean brands. And I could see how everybody was searching for cleaner ingredients, better for your skin to put on your body absorbs these ingredients, but also better for the environment. And I think this was case in point when we actually got our technology from Hui. We gave Women's Wear Daily the exclusive story. The next day, 12 hours later, we had Estee Lauder, L'Oreal, LVMH, Johnson & Johnson, Unilever emailing us. Okay, so imagine. So, yeah.
And the environmental story here is that the materials are safer. What's the environmental benefit of the product?
Sure. So, yeah, it's twofold. And Alex, as she was just saying, like the direct impacts are that we can make sustainable products for these brands that have to reach their KPIs to be using sustainable ingredients. And that's wonderful that we can make reef-safe sunscreen, we can make clean cosmetics. But the externalities that you don't think about are that at the end of the day, when we go to shower and we wash off all the products we've used on our skin, they go back into the waterways and they negatively impact our oceans and our ecosystems. That's one thing. The other thing is that anything that makes CO2, when that gets into the atmosphere and that mixes with water, our oceans, that causes ocean acidification and is the reason that our coral reefs are dying. So the fact that not only can we make reef-safe products, but we can make products that are carbon negative, which addresses the root issue of ocean acidification, is, I think, really, it gets me excited, but I'm the scientist. And so
Gets me excited. I'm in beauty.
and so, yeah, I think it's wonderful that we have these stacked benefits where we're both attacking it from the CO2 aspect, because when we grow our algae and bioreactors, we know exactly how much CO2 we're absorbing per batch of our ingredients. And then we're also making products that are from the ocean and good for the ocean. So when you wash them off at the end of the day, it's not harming our ecosystems, and we're helping brands make things that are more ocean friendly as well.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So this company, which is sort of in an innovation collaboration with the ocean itself, right, is part of a larger ecosystem of innovation that is both using the ocean as a resource, as a source of materials, and also trying to be conscious about our impacts on the ocean. How should we think about, and that's within a larger narrative that's starting to happen about blue economy and ocean innovation. How should we think about the state of play in that larger ecosystem? Do you, is this a space that you work in from the Schmidt Futures Initiative?
Yeah,
Go ahead, yeah.
sorry, thanks. No, you're fine. You can have the microphone. I have just to say, these two ladies looked absolutely incredible on Sunday night when they came dressed as their product. I think your costume was the lipsticks, right? And then you were in the amazing, I don't know, what was it like?
Algae.
Exactly. So very well done to both of them. Look, I think the blue economy is definitely something that has become more mainstream in policy discussions. I hear you say that market determines policy these days. I think policy determines market, sorry. I think that's definitely true. In my hat here at the office of Eric Schmidt, I want to speak about a couple of initiatives. The first one is the Schmidt Ocean Institute. And that one is dedicated to focusing on deep sea ocean exploratory research, and also working with technical advancements and also interdisciplinary advancements to ensure that we're able to effectively map the ecosystem of oceans in the 7 continents. And then the other hat, the other initiative that the Schmidts are doing is focused on the sciences and working to do with climate. So having virtual institutes that examine sort of water acidification or ocean acidification, as well as mapping the broader CO2 capture maps around the world. So there are a lot of initiatives out there from the philanthropic side. I guess that's sort of what my hat on is here for this panel, that tries to sort of drive innovation that would not happen but for philanthropic dollars, because industry is too risk averse to do it, and governments, the bureaucracy is too slow to move and also capture the opportunities there. So I think, if you're interested in speaking to me about these initiatives, we are doing some grants and we're looking for applicants to apply for these grants. And also we have programs that help folks who are working on ocean health and ocean work to come and, propel their work. So I think that's definitely something we're seeing, not just in the US, but also internationally as well. And I think in the Middle East in particular is a really exciting development, and also in North Asia, in Japan and in Korea as well.
And are there, you said that some philanthropy plays a role, particularly when the sort of time horizons or the risk are too high for commercial investors. But are there places where commercializable innovations have resulted from some of the science that you're supporting about the deep ocean mapping and the acidification and so on?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not a scientist myself, so I can't speak convincingly to the work that our scientists have done on this. But I know that the Schmidt Sciences organization has done things like, I don't know if I'm off the record here, probably, but we've done investigations on sort of recreating dead cells in pigs' brains, right? And that was then captured in the New York Times as sort of zombie pigs and those sort of more, I think, clickbait news articles, but actually are very, very valuable contributions to the ocean. So I think definitely in terms of ocean research, we've done work in the Antarctic region as well to map the organisms that are very fragile there, and thinking about how we can better protect our oceans.
Great. Dominic, so you run the Transcap initiative. You guys did a big case study about Builder's Vision ocean strategy, and you've thought a lot about what does it take to build innovation ecosystems around this. What's your take on the state of play here?
So first of all, I'm Swiss. I live in the mountains. I know nothing about the oceans. If you're interested in mountains, come speak to me. But I did lead author this case study on Builder's Vision ocean strategy, and the stuff I spent my professional time on is understanding how do we finance and fund and invest in the transformation of existing systems and the development of new systems. And insofar as there is no sustainable blue economy, we're looking at the challenge of developing a new system. And for some of that, we need the innovators that develop the individual pieces of the puzzles, the seeds, right? But for those to grow, for those to come together, we need other things in the system happening, right? We need other technologies, complementary technologies, but we need a conducive policy environment and regulatory environment, not just for shaping or creating markets and providing incentives, but also for dealing with things like siting and permitting, right? Which maybe in your case might not be a big issue, but in CDR will be an issue. We need other forms of capital to build out other nodes of that system, be that infrastructure. So once you have your product, where is it going to be processed, right? What's that intermediate step between what you're producing and what the cosmetic industry needs? We need insurance solutions for de-risking different stages in the supply chain. We need philanthropy and the public sector to fund consumer acceptance or civil society acceptance plays. And so you have all of these different zones in the systems that need to be equally ready. And it used to be the case that the market was taking care of that. And the market would tell you when it was going to be ready to see to create a pull for a particular technology. We no longer have that time. So the question now is, how do we generate the strategic intelligence about the state of the system, where it is today, where it needs to go, and how it can get there, and then understand the system's financing needs across a much broader toolbox than what is usually associated with investment, right? So yes, market-ready investment capital and concessionary capital and philanthropy, but also advanced market commitments and supply chain finance from corporations, insurance capital, subsidies and tax incentives and public procurement rules from the government, et cetera, et cetera. So all of these are financially active levers. And the question is, how do we identify what's needed? And then how do we build these long-term strategic coalitions of actors from the different stakeholder groups that typically don't work with each other, don't understand each other, so that we can strategically orchestrate capital flows so that the seed that you're planting can grow into a nice plant.
Can I just chime in?
Yeah.
Sorry. Just one thing I often think about is if Danny sort of had not caught wind of this technology coming out of Hui and had not thought to contact me in this space, that this whole suite of ingredients that we really believe is going to change beauty would not exist. And so that communication between the institutions, like the one that you work for, and the entrepreneurs, the people in business like myself and Danny, it's so important to your point, right? We need all to be working together and to really have that clear communication. I often think, what else is out there sitting on, a tech transfer office shelf, just waiting to change the world?
As you're in the philanthropy space, there's a lot of different kinds of roles that philanthropy can play, right? Because you can fund the basic science, you can fund some of the demonstration technology, you can provide catalytic capital for growing things, you can invest in systems change networks focused on the oceans or focused on other topics. How and you're often doing that co-granting or in tandem with other philanthropists. What are you seeing in among both within your sort of foundation and in the context of other philanthropies you're involved in? How are people thinking about sort of the role of philanthropy here and how to allocate your activities or how to allocate your capital between those different spheres? How do you think about the different spheres of work, and how do you kind of allocate capital between them?
I think that's a great question. I think in the US, the field of philanthropy is much less static than it is in Europe. And I know that probably just put a lot of people offside, and I'm sorry for saying that. But you see a lot of things what we call venture philanthropy in the US. And that's not like a fancy term to sort of pretend that we're anything else. It's just implying that the philanthropy takes a lot more risks. So I think in terms of, I will just speak for the Schmidt sort of world, and we've got a lot of different organizations like the Family Foundation, Oceans Institute, Schmidt Sciences, and they're all different initiatives for different purposes, depending on whether it's programmatic support or whether it's outright grant support, right? I think if we need to identify a mission and this sort of, theory of change in line with what the market sees. So the way that we see it is that the sciences are really driven by the academic institutes right now. And a lot of the foundations are more focused on longer term sort of big issues that just take a longer time to figure out, right? So I think we have more discrete grants within the sort of Family Foundation to be able to, I guess, turbocharge some of the more urgent issues that require a bit of charging. So I think having as, my colleague Dominic was saying about different portfolios and different buckets of money you can dip into allows for a very nimble and reflexive kind of philanthropy that can support the different needs at different stages of startups and academic research as well. So just having that idea and bringing that nimbleness, I think venture philanthropy into Europe or other markets like North Asia and like you see in Singapore as well with Temasek is really key to sort of achieving that change through philanthropy.
Anyone else have anything to add? Okay. Well, I want to invite folks who want to connect with particularly Danielle and Alexandra, and as well as Helen and Dominic into the networking space. So thank you so much to our panel.
Thank you.
And,